Welcome to the High Performance Edge, the podcast for contractors who lead with building science and want to turn that advantage into a stronger, more successful business. Whether you're in HVAC, insulation, solar, or home performance, we dig into strategy, sales, marketing, operations, hiring, and customer service approaches that power stable, more profitable companies. Hear from top contractors and industry experts as we explore what it takes to thrive as a very different kind of contractor. Here's your host, founder and CEO of Energy Circle, Peter Troast.
Greetings all, thanks for being here. This podcast is built on the premise that high-performance contracting isn't just the right way to do the work, it's a better business model. And everything we do at Energy Circle is aimed at sharing our experience, data, and know-how to help good contractors use that edge to attract the right customers and grow their companies. In this episode, we're talking about the Better HVAC Alliance, which describes itself as a collective of HVAC professionals taking action to improve the status quo. It's a place for high-performance contractors to gather and learn from each other, and a directory to help homeowners predisposed to quality find their way to the best professionals. My guests are Bill Spohn, CEO of TrueTech Tools, and Kevin Hart, CEO of Haven IAQ, the two drivers of this effort that have so generously and selflessly pushed the Alliance to get to where it is today. And I'll say it up front. If you're doing high-performance work, I think you should join. It's free, it takes minutes, and being associated with a credible signal of quality like the Better HVAC Alliance is only going to matter more in the changing world of how homeowners find contractors and how contractors doing it right stand out from the crowd. Let's dive in. Bill, Kevin, welcome. Great to have you both. And we're here today to talk about a project that both of you have lovingly devoted your time to, the Better HVAC Alliance. And I'm really excited about it. So let's just start with the purpose of it, where it came from, what the idea was, what we're trying to solve, if there was a specific problem out there. So let's go there first. Bill, do you want to kick us off with sort of the story of how we got to where we are today?
Sure, I will. Thank you, Peter and Kevin. Good to have you on board with this podcast too. So I think the term Better HVAC has been used for maybe about 4 to 5 years. And I think we got together as a group having sort of similar experience. And I'll portray in a certain way. And Kevin, you can back me up or challenge me on this. But it was like there's all these great people doing great work, but they're not aware of all the resources and they're not aware of each other. And I think, and this was actually in a conversation I had yesterday about Better HVAC, and someone said, I love the community aspect you're creating. And that was like, whoa, that is great to hear from an outsider, because that's what you're trying to do. And when someone else recognizes it, that's very impactful. What does better mean? I think better for me means it's a direction. It's not a destination. Anybody can start from anywhere and be better. And we like to think the community aspect of Better HVAC will drive that. I think, again, Kevin, we might have resonated on perhaps an HVAC school symposium and said, wow, wouldn't it be great if this just continued year round, continued to grow and grow and grow? I'll give Kevin a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it with the fact that the symposium and several events throughout the year bring together the community. We didn't create the community. The community and the movement of Better existed. It just didn't have a name. It was a grassroots movement that was alive for 2 days of the year. And then for the rest of the year, it's like, well, we want to continue this. You know, where's the place that we can spend time together, meet each other, share resources, share the resources of even the projects that people are working on throughout the years. And so that seemed like the place where we could step in and help amplify this movement that was already there, but just give it a name and give it a central place for people to find and contribute to.
I think that's a very cool aspect of it, that you've kind of brought this, this sort of lonely practice, right, of people who are just out there doing it right, don't necessarily call themselves better or call themselves high performance or whatever the terminology is, and to bring that community together. But there's another side to the website, which is a consumer facing side. So let's make sure we cover that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I think there's never been a bigger gap between the let's call it like the information arbitrage, which is the gap between what a homeowner knows and the expertise of HVAC in delivering a good installation. There's never been a bigger gap there. And part of that is because over the past decade, the cost of an HVAC installation has doubled. And I think part of that is supply chain and inflation and refrigeration changes and heat pumps and different technology. But we're now in this era where it almost costs as much to get your HVAC done as it would a vehicle. And so right now on the homeowner side, we want to help homeowners understand, first of all, that there is a difference between a really good installation of this equipment and the different types of equipment that are available, the types of technology that are available out there. There is a difference between that being done properly and that being done sort of on a mediocre basis. Quickly, we're getting to the place that a homeowner is paying the same for a good installation as they would a mediocre installation. Now, most of the time, a homeowner doesn't realize that what that could result in is your system's not going to last as long. Instead of a system lasting for 20 years, like it sort of used to, it might only last 5 or 6 years and then need some repairs that are quite expensive or maybe last the bare minimum of the warranty. So we're seeing increasingly that there's issues and the homeowners are just not aware. So we're very much in a market that is like the cheapest, quote, the cheapest bid wins. The person with the most Google reviews wins, right? Like these are not really the criteria for selecting the best individual to come do the installation. And I think that's one thing Better HVAC first started focusing on the individual who's doing the installation, the professional. Are they investing in their career? Do they care? Are they getting credentials like BPI credentials and rewiring credentials and things that we can talk about later? Are they actually investing in those things? Are they part of the community? Are they using tools? Do they have a process for doing their installation? Are they verifying and commissioning their installs? Those are the types of signals that show us that actually this person is doing a really good job. They're better. They're trying to be better every day. And we want to help homeowners both understand the difference, but also identify those individuals. And then in aggregate, the companies who employ those individuals or empower those individuals. And that's really part of the purpose of this Better HVAC Alliance.
But it's individuals first, because we think that's where the commitment comes from. And that's what we've seen. That's what we've seen evidence to. And then there's a pledge for the individual as part of the joining the directory is learn, do, share. Learn continuously, do ethically, and share openly. And there's more details to each one of those key points, but we're using the vehicle of trust that someone pledges to do something and they will follow through.
Got it. Really good. Well, as you know, this is the High Performance Edge podcast. We're dedicated to exploring this idea that doing things right, in the manner of the standards that you have set at the Alliance is also a better business. And so I think I'm curious, both from your wearing your hats as sort of leaders of the Alliance, but also in your day jobs, as being in touch with a lot of contractors doing advanced IAQ work, in your case, Kevin, or purchasing more advanced tools. I'm curious to hear from both of you on your take on this emerging sector, right? And this idea, as Kevin was just describing, of contractors who have made a decision to do it differently, hopefully for the purposes of presenting a more differentiated story to potential homeowners.
My feeling is that they need to stay in business. They need clientele, hence the directory. Get them found, because they can lose steam, they can lose effort if they're not doing work, if they're finding that no one is accepting their proposals. So we have a dual prong approach of helping them be found, but also have a component to the website, which is homeowner education. So they know beforehand and can sort of shop the details of what they're going to be presented.
Yeah. Kevin, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the type of person who's in the Better HVAC Alliance is the same type of person who would probably be listening to this podcast, because they're trying to level themselves up, not only in terms of their technical abilities, but even in their business and how they run their business. And those types of people tend to be curious. They're curious people and they always want to do better. And so I believe that type of person, they're sort of problem solvers, right? The homeowner is communicating, here's a problem I'm having, and they get curious about the problem, and then they figure out how to solve it by going and exploring. And so as part of that, I believe that as they're searching and exploring and figuring out how to do that, they realize that there's more to it than just swapping the box. They realize that there's a home, there's an enclosure around the HVAC system, there's ductwork, there's leakage, there's did we pull a vacuum on the system? There's so much more to it. And there's homeowners who have problems where just the box swap didn't do it for them. But if they're in a market where 9 out of 10 contractors are just swapping the box, no one's solving their problem. And so they may be spending a lot of money and getting many, many quotes and realizing, usually after 2 or 3 bad experiences, that, I actually need to do a little more research here. The homeowner, I have this ongoing problem, and it's not just being solved by the first, by the second, by the third contractor. So this approach I'm taking of just calling people with the most Google reviews, like it doesn't seem to be working, right? And so I'm going to dig in a little deeper and study this more. And that's where they encounter things like, oh, there's a load calc, and no one's ever done that for me before. And there's this, home comfort consulting and whatnot. Somebody's going to come in with a blower door test. And, there's people with these tools and these processes. And with a lot of research, I can kind of find them. I think that is where naturally a business for somebody like this, somebody curious, a problem solver, evolves naturally into areas like indoor air quality and naturally into areas like home performance, because they realize that in order to get to the ultimate destination, which is a healthy, comfortable home, at the end of the day, that's all we're doing. It sometimes goes beyond just swapping the box.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should just dig a little deeper into the directory side of it. I mean, I think we've touched on it a little bit, but marketing guy speaking here, one of the greatest values of this is the ability of good companies to come in, get listed, be there to be found, and I think what few people understand about specialized directories like this is they have a ton of value, regardless of whether you're getting a ton, whether the traffic coming through it is setting volume records. And so let's just say a bit more about the directory, what it takes to get listed on it, what information is available to present to people in the directory.
Yeah, so somebody can sign up on betterhvac.org, and the way that they sign up is first they have to fill out an application. The application includes several things like the learn, do, share principle. They have to sign a pledge. They write down their information, what services they provide, their location, the service area that they're covering. And this is very important. Part of the pledge is things like we have a process. We measure the results of what we do. We're going to do the best job possible that we know how to. Right. And so all of those end up part of the application.
Good. And I know how popular the stickers were at the symposium. So I know the reception has been really good, but tell us a little bit more about, how it's grown and the kinds of people that are in it and how it's gone so far.
We first started really having a website or a destination in like February to March of 2024. Actually, then I'd say it quickly grew by the summer to be about 150 people had joined. And then we got contacted by, and we'll talk more about, but Rewiring America contacted us because they were looking at building out their contractor network. And they recommended some changes to the website and design. And we took a real big tick up in the way things function starting in September of 25.
Rewiring America was a really good fit because they do educate homeowners on things like electrification, and they also have a lot of support for contractors. So Rewiring America were a really good fit for us because they are focused as well on the same types of HVAC professionals who are interested in the areas outside of just box swapping, electrification, indoor air quality, home performance, and really they empower consumers with knowledge as well as the professionals. So they were a good fit for us. They're looking at doing projects across the country and providing assistance to those projects and contractors. And one of their big focuses is on electrification, which happens to be a big overlap with a lot of the contractors we work with and professionals in our directory. So that has been a really good partnership. We feed into their homeowner tools. So they have homeowners coming to their site, and those homeowners essentially creates leads for Better HVAC contractors who also have the rewiring badge, and helps find those homeowners who are looking for better services.
Got it. And does everybody get the rewiring badge?
No, it's a separate application process, very easy to add on once you're a Better HVAC member, but it does require some additional steps like a mechanical license and certificate of insurance.
Okay. Well, again, I'd like to just touch a bit more on what you're learning about the sector, right? Obviously the rewiring connects to contractors that have embraced electrification as a kind of a business opportunity. But what else can be said? And you can, wear your day job hats in answering this question as well about the trend line. Are people in the industry who are defining themselves as better, as high performance? Are we seeing like rapid growth? Is this a hockey stick, or sort of is this a trend line that is where the world is going?
It's hard to say. It's very hard to say. But I would say that just considering sort of the vibrancy of things like the HVAC School Symposium, the NCI coordinated high performance hangout at the HR Expo, the amount of conversations that go on in various niche Facebook groups that have developed, the amount of dialogue going back and forth. To me, being an old timer here, it's fantastic.
It certainly feels like things are picking up.
Yeah, good. You mentioned the homeowner perspective, and I think I'd like to shift the conversation to that now. One of the things we've talked about sort of ad nauseum is the idea that homeowners just don't know, right? They don't know the difference between a very high quality contractor and any run of the mill contractor. They don't have that sort of any way of making that sort of separation. Of course, any homeowner that finds their way to the Better HVAC Alliance website and directory defies what I just said, that those are homeowners that do know something. And so I'm curious, I know we're early and I know the traffic is building from homeowners. What have you learned about the mindset of the homeowner that lends itself better to the high performance approach?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just reflect on one thing. At the symposium, we had a little on the stage presentation, a 20-minute BRIX presentation. And Derek Arstad, sitting in the front row, said, it's the homeowners that come from Reddit who are researching the crap out of what's going on and trying to make a decision. I think he said every single one that's come from Reddit, identified source, has become a customer. And they just totally align.
Yeah.
So in as much as Reddit is sometimes looked down upon, I think in this case, it provides an avenue where people can learn on their own and not be pressured with the information.
Well, the homeowner has to have either a serious problem or resources and education to explore this, right? Like there's no reason, if swapping the box worked, why would you go through this journey? It's a long journey of a lot of knowledge that you have to absorb. You either have to be sort of the engineer type that's just wanting to know about this stuff, or you have to have a serious problem that can't be solved through traditional methods, or you just have to be someone who became aware of things like indoor air quality and maybe energy efficiency, electrification, and through those interests, you pursued this. But I mean, the average person isn't going to just go endeavor this unless they have the means, the education, or the problem to encourage them to go do this. And that's not everybody, but it's certainly not, 1% of people. It's probably more like at least 10, 20% of people. And depending on the climate, if you live in a very humid climate, for example, there could be a lot of moisture problems there that aren't being dealt with en masse. And we're seeing a lot of health repercussions of that people are starting to want to do something about.
Yeah. Yeah. I always feel like it's part of my job to remind people that we are not trying to talk to everybody. We don't need everybody, right? If 20% of the HVAC buyers were to meet your criteria, Kevin, there's some problem, or they have a slightly different perspective. They're on their second contractor that didn't solve it, whatever it is. That is a huge niche, right? For all of us. So I think we all always just need to keep that in mind.
You also need to be realistic about your area. If you're in a fairly rural area and not a lot of density of population, it's going to be hard to launch a high performance business unless you go to some extremes.
Yeah, and I would say it's not just about finding you called it a niche, or in Canadian English, a niche, we would say. it's also the better business in my opinion. Like, it's going to be higher margin. It's going to be less competitive. Like, those are all the qualities of a business I would want to build personally. You know, if I were going to go start a heating and cooling company, I wouldn't want to quote 10 other, against 10 other contractors and be the lowest bid to win the job. I would want to do the things no one else is doing, use the interesting tools, like figure out that I'm really solving problems and creating testimonials like, wow, no one else could solve this problem. And now I'm comfortable and I can move back into my home after being, either uncomfortable or unhealthy. Like those are, it feels meaningful. It feels like you're doing a real service to people that no one else is doing. Like, I don't want to be in a red ocean, right? I want to be in a blue ocean of opportunity. And it's also higher margin. So you're going to make more money. And maybe you're out there repairing things that other people were just trying to swap and the homeowner couldn't even afford it.
Yeah.
Because you know how to troubleshoot. So I just think it seems like a better business model.
And I think you came up with a great adjective before, Kevin, curious. If you're curious about problem solving and you're curious about processes to accomplish those problems, you're really well suited for this.
Yeah. Well, the one other thing I would say about the evolving customer is that AI, the presence of kind of intelligence in everybody's hand is having some meaningful change in how well informed people are when they come through the door, right? For better or worse, right? There's the homeowner who's read buildingscience.com and thinks they know more than the contractor does. But there are also many people who arrive at the possibility that they're building, they understand house as a system because they've done a little bit of exploring in AI. So I think in that sense that, the ideal customer profile that we would think of for a high performance contractor is certainly growing. And that is Kevin, I know you and I have talked independently about that sort of AI. And one thing I just want you to touch on a little bit here is the sort of the prominence of directories in general within kind of AI results. And so I think there's a real case to be made for the Alliance and for being in it for that reason. Do you want to say more on that?
Yeah, I actually, like, talking to you prompted me to think more about this and realize that, like, AI may be the greatest disruption and ability to reorganize the HVAC industry into a more better focused outcome. Why is that? Because we've always played games, from originally having telephones in the yellow pages, having the AAA at the beginning, or buying your competitor's phone number when they go to business. There was a lot of like tricks that you could play there. Then we went into the internet era, and from there it was, like Google reviews, and those can easily be, like fake reviews or incentivized reviews for discounts and things like that. And so that quickly hasn't become the biggest signal. But AI, because of how the large language models work, are actually looking for signal. They're looking for something other than just your reviews. They're looking for, and this is why, by the way, Reddit may be a great signal, because somebody in the homeowner's area, in their exact service code, may have on Reddit said, who's a contractor in my region, who does good work. And then 6 other people responded, and 2 of those 6 recommended contractor A. And so now AI has figured out that, well, there's some signal here. There's some signal that there's a good contractor. But there's not a lot to work with right now. Like, Reddit is maybe one of the few signals out there for AI to see as a credible way to recommend a contractor. It's not just going to recommend like the Google ad method of whoever's paying for advertising. We're entering a new era where AI is going to look for credible signals that a contractor is going to do good work. And so I think Better HVAC could be the place of developing that signal for AI to read into and say, hey, look at this individual has these credentials and said this about themselves and follows this process and uses these tools. So we have some signal here, and we have maybe testimonials to back this up that are legitimate, and we have examples of projects we've done. That's the type of signal that we need to develop, and we have the opportunity to develop. But without that being developed, if it's just living in private Facebook groups, AI can't really scrape a private Facebook group, and it can't figure these things out. And all these sort of pseudo testimonials on Google reviews or ads, we're leaving that era. And so I do think this is a massive opportunity.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Guys, let's talk about where this is going, because I know you have a roadmap of what you hope this will become over time, and I want to make sure we talk about that.
Sure. So I'll start out. Why should you join? Don't join unless you're curious about learning new things, or you feel like a loner doing these things. Join for the community.
We talk often about first mover advantage, and in the world of HVAC marketing, that these opportunities don't come along all that often, right? You go back to the early days of local services ads, and because we were there at the very beginning, the contractors that we were working with that got into that program thrived in the beginning, and now it's completely saturated, right? So this is, in my view, an example of something that is early and is a big opportunity. And to the point of that we've discussed a couple times, if you're legit, you really are doing high performance work, and you're the only game in town in a rural location, this could be super beneficial in your area. Just any closing thoughts in terms of where this is headed and what your aspirations are?
Most contractors, because they don't necessarily have web development skills or a full-time web developer or even the bandwidth to organize all of the photos and stuff beyond a quick Facebook post, they don't build these projects in anywhere that's publicly visible for a homeowner to look at, which I would argue could be a very good marketing signal to do something like that. And so one of the ideas we had recently was, what if Better HVAC becomes the place where you can easily follow a template, upload photos, description of the tools you use, the process you followed, the problem you solved, and have that show up under your name, but also become part of a bigger pool of better projects that people can peruse through. And then you can share it. You can share it on your site. You can share it with your customers, potential customers, right? So that's just something that I haven't seen out there, aside from these private groups. And that's one of the features on the roadmap that we're currently working on. We've just completed a partnership with BPI to bring their credentials into our site, so you can put it on your profile. We have more badges that we'd like to add to create more credibility, more signal that someone has the credentials and the education to do good work as well.
Yeah. Well, listen, I just would give 100% endorsement to this idea of the case studies. It's not to say that, the arms race of Google star averages and Google review volume isn't going away. That's still important, but it's increasingly distrusted. And it is increasingly not the place where you get any good information about what really happened in the house. So this idea of project stories, case studies, brag book, I think is a very, very good one, and a really it's a great way to leverage it. People should put it on their own website, but at the same time, as you said, Kevin, having it in both places would be really, really great. And I've got some ideas about how we might collab on that topic. Guys, thank you so much. I guess more than anything, I just want to, you're doing this out of the, kindness of your hearts. You're doing it as volunteers, and very frankly, very little direct benefit to your businesses. And so it's a real gift, and both of you should be, lauded within the industry for doing this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Appreciate that compliment.
Thanks for having us on.
The High Performance Edge podcast is brought to you by our company, Energy Circle, the marketing agency that for 15 years has served the most successful high-performance contractors in the country. Curious about whether we might be a good fit for your marketing and website needs? It begins with a no-obligation, no hard sales discussion of your business and goals, and an honest assessment of whether we can make an outsized impact on your company. Check out energycircle.com or email me directly at peter@energycircle.com.